Hi guys, Ray here from City Fan TV. Hope you guys are all doing very well. Right, I wasn't expecting to do this video today, but some news has come out in the last hour or so about Manchester City suing the Premier League. Yes, you heard that right. Manchester City are suing the Premier League. Now, this is not directly related to the 115 charges. I think put that to one side to start with. It is indirectly kind of related to that as well, I think. But cast your minds back. Cast your minds back about 4 months back in February. Okay, in February there's a story came out that the Premier League might be facing a legal challenge from one of its own clubs after they approved the new rules that would limit the ability of teams to buy players or strike sponsorship deals with parties related to their ownership. Now, you know, City have got this City Football Group, this big extended family of football teams. Other clubs have got similar things going on. I think United, obviously, they got that link with Jim Ratcliffe and Nice. Lyon have got, I think the fellow who owns Lyon has got a stake in Crystal Palace off the top of my head. And so other people are looking at this new ownership model. Now, so these rules were really pushed through, and basically an amendment to the rules governing the associated party transactions, APTs, was approved by clubs, the Premier League clubs, at a league meeting back in, I think it was in February, after being informed of the risk of legal action should they do so. Now, obviously, it's City. At the time, they didn't know who it was. It was thought to be City, and it is going to be City. Now, obviously, the Premier League are embroiled with the 115 charges with City. They've got that on their plate. They've had the issues with Everton on their plate, the issues with Forest. There's been an issue with Chelsea. I think an issue potentially with Leicester City. So much going on. They've been tied up with the City 115 charges for years already. And with everything else going on, you just don't see where they've got the time to deal with everything. Okay? Now, what happened was, basically, they pushed through these rules because of Newcastle's ownership. I think that was the reason. And City have said this is unfair. It's I'm trying to think of the right words. Was it xenophobic or something? It's anyway. Let's have a look. I'm going to read some stuff from the Manchester Evening News about this. So I'm just going to read direct from the article and then give my opinion. Manchester City are reportedly seeking damages from the Premier League as they look to throw out the league's unlawful, as they call it, associated party transaction rules. The two organisations are already set for a game-defining hearing later this year over the 115 rule breaches that City have been accused of by the Premier League. And the Times have reported, it was Matt Lawton in the Times who reported, that City have put together a 165-page legal document in an attempt to overturn the associated party transaction rules, aimed to prevent sponsorship deals being agreed by associated parties that are above fair market value. I'm going to talk about the fair market value now. Actually, the UEFA rules state that sponsorship has to be at a fair market value. So if Etihad is sponsoring City, or anybody sponsoring City, has to be at what is considered a fair market value. Now, that's the rules. City is saying, well, why can't it basically, by the signs of it, be anything we like it to be? You're placing undue restriction of trade or something, unfair rules against us, partly because we're from the Middle East, and because they did it to Newcastle because of their Saudi ownership. They were worried that the Saudis would circumvent, basically get around the FFP rules or the profit and sustainability rules by a massive sponsorship deal for Newcastle, which would give them a huge increase in turnover, which would allow them to go out and buy players and satisfy the FFP stroke PSR rules. So that's what the concern was. They didn't want, basically, some of the big clubs didn't want Newcastle continuing to challenge them because look where United finished this season, out of the top four. Look where Spurs finished this season, out of the top four. Look where Chelsea finished this season, outside the top four. So they don't want, or they didn't want a club like Newcastle to be challenging. They've already had Chelsea, come in along and do that. They've had City come along and do that. And those big clubs have had obviously a problem with City now. So they don't want it to be above fair market value. At the moment, City's deals have been at fair market value. I've always said, in fact, I said with the first Etihad deal that we were undervaluing the deal. The deal was undervaluing City, but people were saying, "Oh no, it's overvalued." Rubbish. We should have been getting more from Etihad anyway. That was my opinion, and my opinion rules on this channel. Okay, City are claim to have argued that the rules introduced in 2021 in the wake of the Newcastle United takeover are against competition law, as well as being discriminatory to clubs with ties to the Gulf region and clubs that are based outside of London. I'm not so sure about all that, but that's what they're saying. As well as looking to end the rules, the club are also said to be seeking damages for money they have not been able to make since the unlawful, as they call it, rules were brought in. That's something different. It's not that they just want the rules thrown out. They want to sue the Premier League for damages. With everything else the Premier League has got going on, this is something that they don't want to be dealing with. It's just going to end up taking years to resolve. And then do they end up balancing, saying, right, you've got a problem here, but there's a problem here. So City have done maybe this stuff wrong, but the Premier League may have done that wrong, and let's call it quits. Just conjecture. Anyway, the 2-week hearing starting on Monday. Today's Monday. Manchester News don't explain themselves very well here because they've just basically had to copy it from the Times. Anyway, the 2-week hearing starting on Monday will have ramifications across the Premier League and ups the stakes between City and the league before the pair battle out in their charges hearing later this year. The most serious allegations the Blues are defending themselves against is that matters relate to whether or not they provided genuine details of sponsorship deals. So it's not an easy thing to understand exactly what's going on and why. But the bottom line is, we knew something was afoot in February. I think the Premier, and what's not included in that article in the MEN, I think the Premier League invited other clubs. They invited the other Premier League clubs to take part in this litigation, and I believe 12 clubs are taking part. Don't know what. Obviously, we're on one side, 12 are on the other. Don't know where the other 7 clubs are. I guess the relegated clubs are kind of out of the equation now, whether they were in it or not. We've seen in the past, obviously, the clubs are against what City stand for, and was it the Hateful Eight or the Nasty Nine? Those clubs that went to UEFA and said, "You've got to," CAS. They tried to get into CAS and say, "You've got to do this sanction against City." I remember at the time, they had no jurisdiction. They're just trying to stick their dirty noses in to what was not directly their business, and they had no say on it. But they felt, oh, hey, we're the Premier League, we're Premier League clubs, we lack that humility. We're gonna go and try and pressure you when you got no. You might have some skin in the game because you want to see City punished, yeah. But you've got no jurisdiction, no rights over the CAS thing, and it was just stupid. Can I say that? It was absolutely stupid. So, Premier League clubs have got form, okay, or many of them have got form for this. Now, so Man City are going to sue the Premier League. That's interesting, okay. As I said, they're not just going to say these rules are unlawful, chuck them out. They're going to sue. Now, I have no idea what that will entail. I'm hoping that's a good journalist is actually going to put something out that will give a bit more than a bit of copying. I'm just looking at the Yahoo News, which is basically the same as the City News, which is probably a lot of it's taken from the Times report, which I don't subscribe to the Times, so I'm not going to get my hands on that. Let's just see if there's anything else. Obviously, a lot of people are commenting about it, but they're like me; they don't really know too much. But if you want to find out more about that, you can go and check on the Times. You can go on, if you subscribe to the Times, looking at another report. It's going to be very, very simple. City basically claim the associated party transactions are unlawful. They're approved by rival clubs in an attempt to stifle their success. It's argued the rules are designed to stop clubs from inflating commercial deals, which I said before, with companies that boast links to their owners. Okay. Instead, sponsorship have to be independently assessed and will only be approved if they're considered fair market value. I mean, to be honest, from my point of view, if you're going to have the financial rules, I think fair market value is a reasonable thing to have. Otherwise, what's the point? You can have whatever financial rules you want, and City's owners can come and say, "We're going to sponsor you for, ourselves for £1 billion." It makes a mockery of all the rules, but that's where City are going. That's where City are going there. So yeah, it's really, whatever happens here, it's really, really important. If they're successful with their claim, now some clubs are worried that City will be successful. I mean, it will open up the doors, obviously, to them suing the Premier League successfully, and it'll open the doors up to anybody being able to sponsor potentially their clubs for whatever they want. Look, I don't agree with financial fair play, PSR, and all that rubbish, okay? Because other clubs had their turn. They got money and did whatever they wanted, like Chelsea, and Chelsea were one of the clubs who want to pull out the drawbridge. City would want to, I suspect, do the same because, hey, now you're in that club, you don't want other people to join in. Newcastle would be obviously a big threat with the money that they've got that can be pumped into them by the Saudi owners. So, yeah, all the clubs fear that City will be successful. It would allow the City to boost the amount of money they can raise via commercial deals. In turn, that will give the club more scope to spend big on players at a time when teams elsewhere are struggling to operate under strict profit and sustainability rules. Now, look, that would give City a huge advantage because right now, it sounds crazy, but we can't compete. For some transfers, could we have got Declan Rice if we'd offered 120 million and offered him more money than Arsenal did? I don't know. Could we have got Jude Bellingham or Mbappe if we had unlimited money to offer? There's also the risk of Saudi taking players. We had rumour today that, not a rumour, KDB said something in the Belgian press about going to Saudi for a couple of years and earning a lot of money. Didn't say when. I suspect we end the next season. But anyway, going back to what I said earlier, the other 19 clubs in the division have reportedly been invited to participate in the legal action, with up to 12, I believe it's 12, having stepped forward. Okay. Now, City remain keen on getting rid of the fair market value rules, as they imply they're designed to discriminate against clubs with ties to the Gulf region because of their swift introduction following Newcastle's 2021 takeover. Okay. City have also put forward the case, apparently, that they've been stopped from monetising their brand in the same way Manchester United could have or have been doing. Okay, now this, as I said, this is separate to the 115 alleged breaches, but I think it will eventually have an impact upon that as well, because if you're found to be in breach of rules associated party transaction rules, okay, if that's what the Premier League have eventually settled on, or the independent commission say City were guilty of that, but if they were illegal, if they were unlawful, then that you would assume or expect that those charges would just collapse because you can't do anything. Now, an additional point here is this legal action because City are worried that they've done something wrong or could be found to have done something wrong with associated party transactions? Is that the reason why City are launching this unprecedented legal action against the Premier League? Hello, guys. More will come out. I'm listening on the radio. They're not really talking about it much because it's a big thing, okay? But they're not talking about it because they just don't know. They can't. The pundits haven't got a clue. The presenters haven't got a clue. They're waiting to get hold of people like Kieran Maguire and maybe Stephen Balson and people like that, who have got a much better idea about finances, and so they're waiting to speak to them. I've heard Matt Lawton on the radio. And the final thing I'm going to say, it's unusual that the Times seems to get a lot of these stories. Martin Ziegler used to get a lot of stories from the FA. I think it was from the FA. They always will leak to the Times, and I always say, look, the Times is a sister paper to the Sun. It's just, it's my opinion, it's just the same dirty, low-level journalism with what's the right word? With a posher voice. That's it. It's a Sun with a posher voice. So maybe they get their information the same way allegedly the Sun will get information by paying for it. People on the inside happy to take money to give information out. But there you go, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I mean, it's all your opinion, because most of us don't really know what's going on with this. But it is interesting. It is unprecedented. Breaking news: City are suing the Premier League. Guys, if you're new to the channel, it would be fantastic if you could subscribe. If you hit that bell icon, you'll be notified as soon as new videos come out. We'll see you around, Blues.